One. And we are recording on Wednesday, June 11th, 2025 at 2 and 9 p.m. Eastern Time with Mr. Ian Burlingame and Mr. Tom Luongo. You guys can go to the description. You can find all their links, all their paid support, all that good shit. And I'm on Team Tom. Tom is going to decapitate Dave Collum during the next podcast, where some people believe Collum's the underdog. He's the dark horse, and he's going to kill Tom. I don't know why this arose. We've done so many episodes together, and the banter has always been identical. But there are people now that are not only mad at Tom for treating Dave so poorly, they're mad at me for allowing this. I don't know what the fuck I don't know why would we do those three-person episodes if there wasn't that? What do you want us to all just sit there and nod? I mean, I don't I really don't know. And so yeah, but it's and I guess in a response blanket response to everyone of that, I am on Team Tom. Not even because I objectively agree or disagree with him. I just think you're feistier. I think you'll kill Dave. This has nothing to do with ideology or rational points. This has to do with fight to the death. I think Jim's probably the smartest out of us four. He just lays low. He just lays
He'll
low.
shiv you in the back when you're
Yeah.
not even.
Dude, there it
Fades into the background. I'm
David,
young and dumb. You two are
I
gonna
don't know,
kill
but
me.
but it's funny. Like Dave and I have been down this, have been having this aversion to this argument for 6 months now, or 8 months now. It's nothing. It's nothing new. He sees things differently than I do, and that's fine. And I don't have any problem. I don't want to hate Dave Collum or anything. I love Dave. Dave is
Yeah,
great.
and that's why it's
I
a
happen to
non-issue.
fundamentally disagree. I happen to fundamentally disagree with him on this, and I don't have to when he says, and when Dave also knows where my trigger points are.
Oh yeah.
So if you guys can't tell,
Dave knows we're on a show called The Bald Ones. Dave knows where to just poke this. Dave knows it's operation. He's like, zzz, zzz. You can see it in his shitting grin while he's just smiling. Yeah, no, he knows what he's doing. It's such a non-issue. The people that think that it's like that's half of it is the banter. But I was gonna say, and then we'll shift to this show. But the one of the first things you just said, it sounds so basic. I found over 5 years, 67 months, 1,764 episodes, that the concept of he just happens to think differently than me. I don't hate him. That alone, I have found, is actually almost unattainable to the population. What I thought was a basic thing, like, hey, show up to the podcast, put pants on and don't play with your phone. Like, those are not assumed things. What you just said, he happens to see things differently from me. I don't hate him. That alone, I have found is that's quantum physics. That's quantum
a revolutionary perspective.
Yeah.
Their world, they grew up in a world and mastered a world that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
It's still got some overlap with the
Inertia.
new world that's coming in, right? But their world doesn't exist anymore, and we're not going back to it. That's the second law of thermodynamics, irreversibility.
Yeah.
Just to finish that point, it's like, look, don't think that we're not living in a psyop as well. Like, I'm sorry, but there are plenty of people. Dave and I show up on a podcast together, or we get into, got news for you. There are assets on both sides who are fake posters who like to, do the thing and stir the fucking pot and sow division. Yeah. Divide and rule is an old game. It's the game that EM and I are going to talk about for the next 85 fucking minutes or so. Yeah. And that's it. And I just look at it that way and go, oh, you're cute. So, do you smell of maple syrup? Fuck off. Did you cash did the check from GCHQ, did it bounce this morning? Because the way Rachel Reeves is running that fucking country, you better watch out for that. Like, at this point, I just don't even give a fuck.
So I always disarm them with my own judo. I come in, they're trying to instigate stuff, and I always just say, kiss me on the mouth like a real man. No one knows how to address that. There's no way to address that. There's no masculine way to address that.
Having grown up in San Francisco, I think they have a solution for that.
Oh yeah, they'll bend over.
How do you know your roommate's gay?
Give me that.
Not going there, right?
Yeah. Give me that Irish hole. Yeah, no, they will.
I will take it serious when the over under odds on the fist fight between Tom and Dave shows up on Polymarket.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, that'd be, dude. I fucking
Just know that I'll be taking the over on that one.
Right?
just know that I will be absolutely propagating that shit, fucking getting beef going, and I will cut both Dave and Tom a check from the. Hey, it's a big
We have
club,
to
and you
figure
ain't
out a
in
way.
it.
We
We
got to
have
put
to
it
figure
behind
out
a
a way to keep you
paywall.
funded, Tommy.
Yeah,
Come on.
Yeah.
exactly.
Hey, listen,
Exactly.
This is
new,
crowdfunding for
we're
the
the new
Carrigan.
Illuminati. It's a big
We're
club.
gonna
And
we're
you're
gonna go
fucking in
back
it.
through your guest list, and we're gonna have grudge matches once a month. We'll put them behind a paywall.
We should have it's our own form of March Madness. We should do it.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
Will.
Carrigan,
brackets. Yeah,
absolutely. Let's do it.
No,
You know,
I absolutely will. Yeah, no. Well, let's to kind of just pivot
So,
what you said about divide and
yeah,
conquer, though. I mean, it kind of seems like this is how we're. It took them a couple months to spool it up, as Mike Shelby had been saying on Twitter. Like they don't have the momentum or the energy they did in 2020. That being
no,
the kind of Marxist counter opposition or opposition to Trump. But we are. It seems like the old engine, the old tractor spooling up. No surprise in California. But is this indicative of higher planning, international nation state cartel, whatever, or is this an emergent
this was
phenomenon of
this
just
was always in the books. So,
yeah,
as a Green Beret guy, you always got 3 or 4 plans on the
yeah,
back shelf and in the supply room. And it was just a matter of were they going to have to go there? Could they, were they going to have better success in the courts than they are having? Were they going to be able to, use the infiltration of the House Guard, the Praetorians, to use violence and threats of violence to, the kids and the family of Trump and the team? But this was always prepared, it was always ready. They always knew it was going to have to go to a constitutional crisis, and they knew how to create it. Why does it start in L.A.? LA the whole city is a stage. It's a set.
yeah,
The screenwriters are right. The
it is
playwrights are
true.
there, right? What we're seeing is reality TV. They were always going to go to this. It was just a matter of time, and they have to do it now because the 2026 elections are coming up, and they got to get all that prepped, and they're losing in the courts, and they got to deflect away from that, and they're
and
losing
the
on the international scene because they're not able to instigate the wars that they thought they were going to get Pakistan and India and Iran and Israel and right.
yeah, and then you listen to Tom Homan, and this was the thing for me the other day. I mean, I will not lie. I spent a lot of Sunday night, way deep into the mornings, doom scrolling my Twitter feed and everything else, watching the thing play out, and I was a little worried about things, and because I'm like, okay, well, okay, so they've activated the beaners, and um, it's all about racism and racism and the Constitution and all that stuff. And then Tom Homan comes out about 2 days later and says, "Oh, but by the way, no, really, this is about us serving warrants in service of a larger investigation, criminal investigation
Yeah.
involving money laundering."
I
And I
didn't
went,
see that.
"Oh,
Oh,
really? Yeah, no. This is what this is about." So they
Oh,
were going after the cartel's fucking money laundering
oh,
operation,
correct,
and that's what
correct,
set this in motion. So
correct.
now let's bring it. So now let's bring in the rest of the
Yeah,
stage. The rest of the stage
yeah,
is the Port of Los Angeles. This
yeah,
cuts across every line here. You've got the Port of Los Angeles and the Chinese stuff coming in, the
yeah.
fentanyl precursors and all the rest of it. You've got the cartel monies, you've got the coyotes, you've got everything here. And you and I know you and I talked about this on Twitter a little bit. I put my stuff up on Twitter and I said, look,
Yeah.
I thought, this is one of those things where I looked at it when I saw Homan say that, I'm like, oh, no wonder there has to be a riot because but the question then is, I think this is what we should really talk about today. I think this is what frame the talk, because this is really what I want to hear from you is who's do you think is in charge of the escalatory ladder? Who's in charge of the escalatory framework here? Because it's kind of obvious that, okay, you could make the argument, okay, well, they had to do this because Trump's birthday's coming up and the big, beautiful bill and the this and that. And then there's all of that. So they picked this time. So then did Trump and company decide to issue these warrants for, and this investigation at this moment in time to get them onto the scene? Like the whole thing is who created the inciting incident for this movie that we're watching play out. That's the interesting part. And then who's in control of the escalatory ladder from here. That's, I think, the most important question. And I don't know that, we got to make sure that we define what we mean by control of the escalatory ladder as well. But
it's
I'll
the
back
mob
off.
state. It's the mob state. I did a whole series of threads on this, and it's the Praetorians. The very same as is controlled Rome in Roman times that took an emperor, took a very sophisticated 100-year operation to split the capital in two and get two separate power bases and do all that very carefully, because your own house guard might knife you or your kid in your sleep. And then 100 some odd years later, Constantine comes back, he draws them all out and crushes them at the war, the war on the Battle of Milvian Bridge. It's the same people, same mind. Where did those Praetorians go? They went to Venice. They created Venice. Where they go from there? Amsterdam. Where they go from there? City of London, London. Right? Where they go from there? Wall Street. Who created the CIA? Frickin' Wall Street. CIA. It's the same frickin' people, right? And this is actually what got Tommy and I introduced in the first place, was the Praetorian threads I did. Right? It's
Right.
who, to your question, who had, what was the global war on terror? It was a mob war. It was a mob war. We took, the intelligence agency, so we had a reality TV series. It was called The War on Terror, and it was Langley's writers against Tampa's writers. So that's the CIA versus Special Operations Command, SOCOM. And what was it? It was a mob war. We used the United States military and all of our intelligence and Delta Force, Dale's guys and everybody else to take over all the terrorist and criminal organizations, substantive criminal organizations in the world, and then kill off that didn't want anybody who didn't want to play. And that's who's really in control. And it's self-funding. It's about 1.6 trillion, we estimate, it's probably higher than that, in free cash flow every year. They're in control. And they're not going to let us, what they want, and I did a series on this as well, is they want failed narco states. That's their goal, their objective. And you're pretty much close in California and Arizona and other places already. Colorado's accelerating. But that's what they want. And that's who's in control. And that's who has the control of the escalatory ladder. And don't think first, and that's the real enemy. The real enemy isn't China or Russia or the commies or the this. No, it's the Praetorians and the mob state, and that's the intelligence communities, and they own the cartels. And Tom, you and I are old enough to remember Ollie North getting up in front of Congress going, "Senator, I do not recall. What the hell was that all about?" Iran-Contra. That was selling cocaine into the United States using Air America to move shit around South and Central America so that somebody could buy guns for somebody from, you know what I mean?
Gary Webb, Dark.
That never went away. That just accelerated. And once the Soviet Empire came down, which was countering some of that stuff around the world, there was nothing to stop it.
All right. Well, so now let's bring that back one step, which is what and what I mean by control of the escalatory ladder. I don't know this exactly what I think you might think it means. Meaning, we're in this escalatory framework right now. They're clearly trying to foment a civil war and/or constitutional crisis here in the United States. I don't disagree with you on that. You and I don't disagree on that at all. We're not going to get into an EM Tom cage match over that one. Like the over under on that on that one is pretty fucking low. The more obvious over under is whether or not you and I ever get together for cigars and scotch. Now the or in my case rye,
meth.
So it is what it is, folks. I'm less allergic to rye than I am to wheat. Get over yourself. And barley. So even though scotch tastes better. Now, that being said, in this moment in time, right, in this framework, which we've never lived through, right, where these people are now pushing for their, like, they're going for their latest version of the win, without a doubt. The question is whether or not they are actually in control of, rather than pushing up. Like, the person who pushes up the escalatory ladder doesn't necessarily in control of the outcome of what happens when you get to the top of the escalatory ladder. Meaning, what I'm getting at here is, like, the question, I'm going to bring it back to Ukraine and Russia, right? And then we talk about, this is what I mean by control. Who's been in control of this? Is it the escalation in Ukraine? Has it been the Brits and the Europeans backing the Ukrainians, pushing Russia into coffin corner where they have no other option but to go nuclear because that's the end of the escalatory ladder in Ukraine? Or is it Russia being able to walk up every time they escalate, the Russians can walk back from that point and be in control of when we go there? If my view on it, every time I watch the Russians go, every time I see them, the Praetorians, whatever you want to call them, go up the escalatory ladder, the Russians never follow them. Mm-hmm. Now they don't. Now you could make the argument that they don't do so because Putin is the moderate. Blah 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 blah. No, he understands that he's in control of when this thing goes nuclear.
Correctly
they
agreed.
Aren't
fundamentally agreed.
And because of that, now let's take that framework and let's apply it to what's happening in the United States. Does Trump and company have the assets and the ability to stop this from escalating to the level that these people want? That's what I'm getting.
I'm in total accord, but you're a chemist, right? And so there's in a chemical reaction, there's the processes that are driving up to, and then there's a transition where everything's forming together, et cetera. Okay. So we'll go back to Ukraine, right? Ukraine. Up until the point Russia moved across the border, the Praetorians had the escalatory ladder. Okay. Once Russia crossed the border, it's been in Russia's hands. It's been in Russia's control. And it's not just Putin because he's got a whole the Russians are actually really good at war. And it's because of one man. They're really good at war. They've been doing it a long time, right? They survived the Mongols. They survived the Bolsheviks. They survived the Bolsheviks. Yeah. So up until the point Russia decided they have to take control of escalation, and they did so with force. So we're not at the point yet where again, Trump's just one guy. This is not his expertise. He's a pretty good dirty fighter. So it's going to be people. It's very interesting tell with Tulsi Gabbard's whole comment about nukes, right? That had nothing to do with Russia. That was directed to us about our own leaders, et cetera. And disloyal people who did an operation in Russia without the knowledge probably of Tulsi Gabbard and Trump. An operation that started 18 months ago. So, right. So up until the point where enough of our power elite come together and realize that they're going to have to cross the border, the Rubicon, shall we say, the escalatory control, the escalatory ladder is on the other side. There will be a tenuous, in those phase transitions, there's a little bit of tenuousness in there because you don't know exactly how that phase transition is going to go. And so we're going to have to deal with that. I don't know that we get to that for a little while because I suspect what they are going to do now is try and scare us back into line. That's what most all of this is about. It's about masking and hiding, but it's about scaring us back in line. And the problem is we do have the boomers around. They still are a large group. They're very they vote heavily. Votes are coming up. And they're old, and so they vote from fear. It's just a fact. So I suspect they're going to escalate. They're going to broaden this, expand this, but it's more about the upcoming elections and scaring the system back, scaring people back, because they do accept. Well, they don't know that we're actually going to go across the Rubicon. They don't see that yet. They also don't, it's like a woman. Again, Tommy, you and I had the world's bar fight conversation, right? Crazy woman, estrogen logic, will push the guy in the bar, right? She'll push and push and push and push. But she doesn't want him to push across a certain line where he gets up and actually throws hands. Because then it's all bets off, right? But she'll push and push and push, right? And physically even, right? And even hit him, et cetera. But there's a certain line she'll tend to back away unless she's just batshit crazy and et cetera. So I suspect right now they have control of the escalatory ladder right now, and they're going to continue to push. They're going to expand. They're going to try and scare us, the normies back in line. They're going to scare the boomers back in line, right? The whole argument they used about, well, we got to put Biden in there because we want normalcy. It's like, sorry, boomers, your world's gone and we're not going back to that. And if we do this again, we will further embed this and we may not be able to fight. We may not be able to remove this parasite that's killing the host. And they may then, they'll do their passive aggressive estrogen logic acceleration, of tearing everything apart, tearing everything down. At some point, we're going to have to cross the Rubicon, and we freaking know it.
Yep.
What Tom said about,
And then we'll have escalatory control.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
What Tom said about the money laundering. I didn't know. I've been off Twitter for almost 2 weeks now. The first week involuntary, I told an Indian guy to kill himself, and I got banned. And I can go back now, but I've genuinely kind of enjoyed not being on. So I didn't know any about that money laundering thing. But I was gonna say is, do you think
And trafficking.
Yeah,
It
you
was
guys.
money laundering and trafficking.
But I mean, it's
Trafficking,
higher
yeah.
order as opposed to just randomly,
Yeah.
Orange Man
Yeah,
bad.
yeah.
Do you think that could, and it might, you guys might have already said this and it went over my head. Is it that, as Mike Shelby was saying, like they don't have the inertia, they don't have the momentum, there isn't that general baseline fervor of just resist Trump at all costs? Do you think that so, but they know Trump at all, know that that is coming. They're just spooling it up. And with January, February, they know it's coming. They know it's not going to be silence and peace. Is this because of the, which I didn't know until Tom said it, because of the warrants, the money laundering, the trafficking? Is this Trump team writ large going, let's force their hand back to the escalatory ladder of
I don't think
going,
so. I
so
don't think so.
so
Yeah.
they're okay, and then I was going to then comment about what you said about controlling the escalatory ladder. Yeah, like a chemical reaction or something, it's you're getting it going, but once it gets going, there are kind of just natural laws where it's like you
Yeah.
don't
Yeah. Yeah.
control, you have more control than the other than
Yeah.
me, but you're
Yeah.
not controlling it,
I'll
Tom.
deepen that. I'll deepen that
Right.
that metaphor later.
Yeah.
Go ahead and finish and
So,
respond to that, and then I'll talk.
the first thing they did is they went after state funding. They cut off USAID.
USAID.
There's all kinds of other things.
Sent the Marines to the border.
If you're going to handicap, if you're going to handicap your enemy's ability to fight, you have to cut off their illicit funding also.
Mhm.
Right? So,
Oh,
because that's, right now there's probably about 100 trillion in the war chest off in all over in the spider's web. But most of that's, in the form of debt. It's in the form of, assets purchased with debt, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not real liquidity.
No.
And if you started to sell off those assets, you're gonna get a deflationary, large deflationary movement. That's gonna send a signal, and then they can focus in on that, et cetera. So you need the illicit funding to fund the Civil War. You need the illicit funding to fund all of the social movements and all of this stuff. So you have to go after that. So I suspect what's happening is they are trying to go after, they've done the state funding. Now they're trying to go after the private funding.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So
much more
sense. And I agree with that. And this is part of the reason why sometimes I get frustrated with Trump when he goes out and he pisses and moans at the Federal Reserve chair for holding interest rates at 4.5%, because our holding dollars at the cost of dollars at a very high rate is actually starving their private funding, because that money is not as liquid as you would think it is.
Yes.
And so with today's CPI print, for example, and again, I'm going to go back to the whole chemical reaction thing in a minute, because I think it'll inform the second phase of this conversation, which is that with the hard CPI print this morning, and Trump's screaming that he should cut by Powell should cut by 100 basis points, which Powell's not going to do. But I have no problem with Powell cutting 100 basis points over the course of the next 6 months, as long as he also doesn't cut all of the foreign sources of liquidity at the same time. When I just tweeted,
he can dry up other options too.
Right. I just tweeted out in response to some idiot who doesn't get it. I said, look, I have no, you have to, it's like, what started this for me? It started for me with the 5 basis points to change the world. When Powell started to go after Eurodollar liquidity by drawing M0 out of the system and into the domestic reverse repo facility, at the same time as the Wall Street banks, the previously Praetorian Wall Street banks, realizing the situation for what it was, and said, okay, we're no longer doing business with the Praetorian banks anymore by not taking European debt at par for repo collateral. And that started the real process. And that's what gave us COVID. I am firmly convinced it's what gave us COVID. Okay. So again, so when you apply that model to where we are today, that means that if Powell needs to cut rates because, hey, we can afford to cut rates now in order to stimulate the domestic economy, which is now, has in many ways kind of begun to right size itself and protect credit-based assets domestically. That means you have to then hold at the current rates. You can drop the Fed funds rate, but you don't cut the rates that they are that foreign investors, foreign central banks have to pay. That means the swap rates are no longer indexed to 5 basis points or 10 basis points above whatever's what we're trading at domestically. No, you're going to get 100 basis points, unless of course you've got a trade deal with the United States and you've said, hey, we're willing to embrace the new model at par. Notice that this morning, not only did we get the CPI print, but we got Trump tweeting out that the trade deal with China is done. What do we now? EM, you and I have talked about this in the past, and we both agree. Like I always said, the trade deal with China is not particularly hard. China's the producer, we're the consumer is sovereign. They're sitting on all these overly complex supply chains to build basic fucking shit like shoes to sell to us into our market. I got news for you. They're more vulnerable to a tariff war than we are. And eventually China will cut a deal. Done. And basically it's been done. Right on time. Right as this is happening. Now, so you have that's done, but guess who hasn't even begun to open up the conversation? The European Union, who then comes out yesterday with our 18th sanctions package against the Russians, with we're going to go to the G7 and demand that Janet Yellen's cap on the price of oil is $45, not $60. Who the fuck needs that? Like the Russians aren't, like, no one's doing that. The European Union is importing more Russian oil and gas than they have in 10 fucking years because they can't get it anywhere else. Why? Because the fucking United States has basically told them to go scratch. They are being walled off.
Yeah.
This morning, another piece of data that hits this morning. Keir Starmer gives the Gibraltar back to the fucking Europeans. Why? Because they can see that Trump is trying to
the security wall that we're building
around that we're building this big wall around the southern coast of Europe and the northern coast of the Mediterranean. This is all happening like literally within a 72-hour period, or hell, in this case, a 24-hour period. Now, in that respect, who's actually in charge of the escalatory ladder? Domestically, I agree with you completely. At some point, Trump is going to cross the Rubicon and do what needs to be done. I remind everybody, how many states did Richard Nixon win 18 months after Kent State in 1972?
Most of them.
49.
Yeah.
That's how many he won.
Yeah.
Okay. So never forget that what they're playing with here is, and this was with the demographic bulge of the idealistic boomers.
Yeah.
They don't have that anymore.
Yeah.
They don't have anything close to that. They got a whole bunch of hard-bitten fucking Gen Xers. They got Zoomers who aren't consuming any alcohol. And you've got the millennials who are now 5 to 10 years into their mortgages.
Yeah. If they have one.
If they have them. What I'm saying is there ain't even with the boomers are all dying off faster than everybody expected because they killed them all with COVID and the fucking vax.
This is why they bring in all of the immigrants, though. This is why you flood tens of millions of people into the country.
Right. But what's clearly coming next is overwhelming American support for mass deportations of these fucking people.
Yeah.
That's what's coming. And they're going to play this game and they're going to lose in a way that I don't think that they have calculated for yet. That's where my
care. I don't think they care.
I don't think that. I agree with you.
It's estrogen logic. It doesn't care what it goes to. Have you ever been in a fight with a woman when she's pissed? Mm-hmm. She doesn't care what comes out of her mouth. She doesn't care what she says. She doesn't care what it does. It's just rage.
Mm-hmm.
And once they push this to where the men have to stand up and forcibly remove people from the bar, otherwise known as the United States, this wonderful nightclub. When we start doing that, the women are going to go and, the estrogens, I say estrogens because it's not just women, right? It's,
Right.
you know,
It's the soy boys. It's the
it's
Kirsten
this,
Storm.
it's the, yeah,
Macarons.
exactly. They're going to go ape shit and they don't care what comes out of their mouth. They don't care what happens, right? It's like anybody who's been in a serious divorce with some serious assets on the line and some kids and anything else with a nasty, bitter spouse, male or female, and horrible frickin' attorneys and corrupted judges who are all for, the victim who's really the victimizer. Uh, they don't care at that point. They just want to destroy.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Agreed.
Now, they don't want to go there because it can harm them and hurt them. And they got some idea that, yeah, that man could really just fuck them up, right? The testosterone in the room could just fuck, but they don't care. They're in rage mode.
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, and we just see that, right? We just saw it in LA, how
Mm-hmm.
quick and easy they can go into that place.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So,
and but again, this is we don't live in a world of maximum echo chamber, right? And so the perception of how this is playing out, if you don't understand that within 12 hours, 6 hours of that iconic photo of the city on fire behind him with the dude in the mask with the Mexican flag on the back of the motorcycle, and they're like, oh shit, and they're ordering friggin' American flags from Amazon to distribute out, like, and then they think now just they this is how tone deaf they are. They think that photo with an American flag is going to play better.
yeah. Yeah.
They've completely lost it. So
Well,
now,
I mean, if you want an example of what's coming, I look at the bitches in control of Europe right now
mm-hmm.
who think they're going to take Russia on. Are you
know.
insane?
Yes. But when you
Yes.
watch when you gauge the reaction from people like Kaya Callas and Ursula von der Satan and all the rest of them, and then they put Annalena Baerbock in charge of the UN. Like, you think this is somehow going to what's going to happen then is Trump will just say, that's it, move like Lavrov the other day was really funny. Sergei Lavrov came out the other day that they should move the UN to Sochi.
Oh, Jesus.
That would be fucking amazing.
That is my fucking spirit animal. That dude.
The problem is that Tommy and I have both been bouncers, and the problem is once she's in a rage, the bitch just can't see, think, feel. She's just insane. She's beyond. There's no logic, no rationality, etc. And unfortunately, you're gonna have to punch her in the fucking face.
The only thing to do at that point is establish what is it what's the burns they put around forest fires?
To put
burn stop, whatever the fuck it is. At that point, that's all you can do.
Fire lane.
Fire. You can no longer stop what's going on in the center. What you can do though is stop it from burning the fucking planet.
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of what we're seeing more of. Do you think, again, in my just retarded 34-year-old unexperienced wisdom, how much of it does Trump's response to this set the narrative for the next 4 years? Because the last time we had this was Summer of Love, but it was at the end of 4 years. Now, and an election that he was trying to win, and he did win. Now there is no re-election, and it's the first year.
Well, but there is, because there's the 26 elections, and we need to be careful because they're not going for federal power. They're going for local power. They're going for your local mayor, sheriff, your district attorneys, all of those things.
Regardless of what, agreed, regardless of what power, how much of it is important to how he sets the tone now for the next 4 years? And because you don't want to entirely buy into it because they want the imagery of the boot. Then they say, "Oh, federal overreach." What is the importance of, or is this something where you go, in 2 months this won't be the story?
I think that he's got to start the chemical. I think it's already happened with his coming back into office and everything he's done and all the things we haven't seen that are being done. You have to, to the escalatory ladder, you have to be the one, and back to the chemical stuff, you have to be the one who has the catalyst. and you have to initiate that catalyst. So the chemical, the complicated chemical cascading processes are happening. So you're going to get to a place where the escalatory ladder is now in your control, but you got to set that in motion yourself and not let the other side do it, because you're going to come up with a very different solution. Right.
Yeah.
And it might be a caustic solution that, go ahead.
This is what I was going to get at earlier when I said I want to deepen that metaphor. When you have, this is not a simple reaction like thermite, which is a very simple reaction, right? Yeah. It's iron rust plus aluminum metal plus a catalyst equals molten iron and aluminum oxide. And ain't nothing else happening here. No daughter products, no leftovers, no bullshit. This is what you got. As opposed to what I used to work on, which was an electrolysis nickel boron, which is a hideously complex series of reactions with end states which are as energetically insane as thermite, like which are exothermic reactions of a type and kind that rival thermite. But the goal was a very controlled reaction where we deposited a very specific stoichiometric weight of nickel to boron on the surface of a part.
Yeah.
With everything else tightly bound. The reaction pathways available on that thing, when I wrote them all out, took up an 8x4 whiteboard in my office. Yeah. All with their own Gibbs free energy state and
I love those big graphs
and everything else. Yeah. And what you have to realize is that what EM just said is the very important part, which is how you get that one out of all of these others is the important thing. You have competing reactions, competing factions trying to push this thing in whatever direction they want. What they want is for the bath, in this case, to decompose and for no metal to be deposited and no localized order to be created. Correct. They want chaos. Yes. They don't want nickel boron deposited on parts. They want nickel sand at the bottom of the thing. And guys going, oh shit, we just wasted $40,000. Now we got to remake the bath and clean the whole fucking thing out. And production's going to be down for 3 days. That's what they want. Yes. I lived in that world. And so what's really important here is to understand that this is going to turn on very, very specific things. Now, what I said while watching all this play out, immediately said, this is their color revolution moment. No doubt they've activated the color revolutionaries. Yep. This is not going to stop. Yep. Now, ask yourself the question. Look at where the color revolution model was successful in the past and what didn't the leadership do and how that was success and why that was successful. I don't care if it's the Bolshevik Revolution. I don't care if it was the Arab Spring. I don't care if it was
revolution.
Ukraine. It was Ukraine. Yada yada yada. Alexander Dugin the other night came out and said this is no different than the Maidan.
No, what they're exactly doing. The same.
Same thing.
Same people. Even
same people. Without a doubt. Yeah. But look at where the color revolution has failed, because Ukraine was the last successful color revolution.
Correct.
Since then, there have been like 3 or 4, three that I can remember, or 4. Actually, the last one that was really successful was Armenia with Nikol Pashinyan. But Belarus in 2020, fail.
Yep.
Kazakhstan in 2022, fail.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
How did it fail? Well, Putin and the local authorities moved in immediately, broke the whole fucking thing up, assholes and elbows, and did not give a fuck.
That's
one single solitary fuck.
Yeah.
What the political fallout was. Take the political burn, nip this motherfucker in the bud, and be done with it, and then move on and don't apologize.
No more consensus. Testosterone takes control. Testosterone needs to drive the chemical reactions.
That's right.
We need to stop letting estrogen do it. And this isn't the thing about women or men, or it's not necessarily that. It's estrogen and everything. Like, you want to change this real quick, and you want to keep the world from burning down, United States from burning down, ban the pill.
Yeah.
Because aerosolized estrogen is everywhere. And aerosolized estrogen regulates and controls testosterone in males. It makes us all think that all these women, and the ones with elevated estrogen from the pill, that they're all pregnant. Well, what do males do when a woman's pregnant? Their testosterone production drops, and they go into protection mode no matter what the crazy bitch says when she's pregnant. And boy, they can say some.
Protect the offspring.
So
Yeah.
we're all running around with all this aerosolized estrogen being thrown off by women on the pill, and we're all living that and acting it subconsciously, right? It's not something that happens consciously. So, how do you, given the fact that we have an actual hormone that regulates other hormones floating everywhere in all the water, in food, in all this stuff, what is the chemical reaction of testosterone to start removing that so we can actually get into a broader testosterone production logic system?
Well, it's everything that RFK Jr. has talked about.
Right.
Eat some friggin' meat, get rid of the seed oils, get rid of the fucking soy in your diet, blah 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 blah, and do the thing. And you want to be protected from COVID, smoke more cigars. Like, it's not tough. Like, I know that people are addicted to this nicotine. I prefer cigars to Zins. Sorry, just my thing.
It's kind of gay packing something in your mouth.
That's why when people ask how do I push the podcast forward, I tell them there's nothing that's stimulants and hate.
Make like a fucking circus seal too.
Oh God! I was gonna say there's nothing that stimulants and hatred cannot achieve. I truly believe that. That is
well, it's true, but the problem we have, right, is we've got a whole lot of XY chromosome individuals who are not the best educated, don't have a whole lot of emotional, psychological control, are fed a bunch of shit. Their dopamine systems are shot. And they're in this, hormone-induced state where they feel they got to protect women and they got to protect the, children, and they got to protect the weak, and they got to protect, right? They're in this protect mode. And it's being used to destroy them. And unfortunately, it can be used to rile them up to go fight the healthy people. Right? The women that should be protected, and the men that should be standing beside, not coming against. Yep. So, I've been thinking about this quite a lot, actually, and I was starting to model out some of it, and I got distracted by, I don't even remember what the hell I got distracted by, right? Because I realized it's everywhere, it's in everything. It's a fundamental problem that we're going to have to deal with. You're absolutely right. What Kennedy's doing is helping a lot.
Yep.
But as long as women are taking the pill in large numbers, it's flooded in everywhere. It's flooded in everything. And it's warping our sense of reality. And it has to be dealt with.
But that's not something like us three are going to be able to affect, the aerosolized estrogen level. So in terms of like,
no, this is an ethos statement for the generations that are coming up now.
Correct.
How are they going to change their behavior and change their ethos?
Take control. How can they take control of their own consciousness? That's what I was
gonna. That's what I was gonna kind of lean that into. It's not even an abstract thing. It's something I really do believe with this podcast. I've always just believed in free speech absolutism, kind of more so as just a general operating system with no higher understanding of it. But now that I can look back over 5.5 years of it, I really do look at it, and I firmly believe. I always used to think it was like 1 or 2% of people speaking out against 98% of opposition, and now I'm pretty convinced it's 1 or 2% of people speaking out against the actions of maybe another 5% of people, with 97% or 93% of undecided people in the middle. And so it can look like it's 2% against 98, but the reality of what it is it's 5 pounds versus 2 pounds on a seesaw. You don't actually have to get 97, 8 more pounds on your side. You really only need to get like 3. And if you can do that, so my point is I have found just through this show, just from my own limited experience with friends, family, acquaintance, whatever, people from college, early on the show, the general vibe of like, you're a conspiracy theorist, anti-vaxxer, blah, 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 versus now, 5 years later, and the entire gradient in between has slowly moved to, it requires less and less entrance energy. You have to be you have to have less testosterone and less balls to stand up and say, I think that's wrong. It's a lot easier 5 years later for people to be like, yeah, no, vaccine mandates probably weren't good, which in itself sucks because you want people to stand their ground and not be a pussy, but whatever, take the win. More people, I think, are willing to, when they look around and they get consensus and they see that they're not alone, when some people are like, hey, man, fuck these people, throw them out of the fucking country. It used to be 1 in 100. Now, if it's 5 out of 100, you actually are starting to get a lot more normies who are maybe a little more on the side of testosterone as opposed to estrogen, who are willing to now go, they don't have to be the first person to say it. It's easier for them to say, yeah, maybe it's not bad to have a border. And so that to me is, I guess, the silver lining to it. And it's what us three, it's what people watching this can do. It's like there is an actual quantifiable value
Well,
to standing up and saying what you know is right, because it allows the people who maybe their balls haven't entirely dropped, they're less scared to come to your side of the seesaw, if any of that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. I'll put it to you this way. 5 years ago, when I used to talk about the Federal Reserve, people used to look at me. I had 5 heads.
Yeah.
Or 7 years ago, when I first started Gold Ghosts and Guns, I was like, now I'm just one of the dudes. Now it required me to actually continue to evolve as a commentator and bring more stuff into the
Shift the Overton window.
comment in order to try and not just stay ahead of the curve, but but get things
to continue the reaction, to drive the reaction.
Exactly. Yeah. We're at that moment. We're not, today today we've come full circle. 7 years ago, no one read Zero Hedge.
Yeah.
Right. Now, all of a sudden, everybody in my community is like, Zero Hedge is so fucking normie. It's not funny.
But it's the third stage of truth, right? At first it's mocked, then it's violently attacked, and then and my favorite is the third. The wording is so perfect, and then it is accepted as self-evident.
Mm-hmm.
And but then what you have to do is you can't get, so they're normies. Now you got to keep pushing it. You got to start saying stuff now that in 2025 is fucking fringe.
Back to the chemistry, right? You got to continue to drive the reaction.
Yeah.
You got to get counter reactions, and so you got to add in a little bit here and a little bit there, and keep the reaction going, right?
You've got to balance the inputs versus outputs in order to keep building.
Correct.
In order to keep building coating on, and which in this case was a protective coating, a coating around the core of your ethos, and the ethos is a return to normalcy.
Absolutely.
I really think to
add much.
I was gonna say,
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think really I look back, I really think the happiest I've ever been in my life is doing organic chemistry alone in my room in college. It was just there was no bullshit. It just all made such perfect sense that only an OCD mind could love. Just it was just. Sorry,
and it can get as complex as you want. Well, that's the other thing, right? Is that we look at this world and it's so complex and there's so much going on in this chemical reaction of a civilization and a society. But if you look really close, same with like a Brownian gas, when you look really close, it's just small little things, right? There's just a whole lot of them, small little reactions. And so it's not like we have, again, Tom, to use a chemical thing, right? Chemical reaction thing. It's not like we need to wait for some massive addition, input into the slurry to get us there. In fact, that's going to screw it all up and can ruin the whole thing, right? And each one of us can do small little things with improving our knowledge and understanding and our awareness and then our communication. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, the proper metaphor is that even no matter what the reaction is, right? There's always a transition energy that has to be overcome. And it's the reorganization energy. Yeah. Right. We go from one state where matter is ordered one way, and we're going to get to this other state, which is more ordered and lower in internal energy. But to get there, we have to add energy to deform everything, to deform the bonds, to then get the new reorganization. We're in that process. And every time we have another podcast or we do a thing or we introduce a new idea or a new wrinkle or whatever, what are we doing? We're walking up the transition energy curve till we get to the moment of everybody goes, oh, it's supposed to work like this, and then if the reaction is spontaneous by Gibbs free energy, it will then, once it reaches that transition energy, then it can then express itself as the new organization. That's where we are right now. That's why the CPI print this morning was such a fucking massive lightning bolt, because not that the CPI itself is anything other than bullshit, but it's because the world was told one thing about what tariffs would do and what the chaos would create, and it's not doing that. So not only did that come out today, then Scott Bessent comes out just knowing full well what he was fucking doing, then came out and said, oh, by the way, May over May remittances to the United States, revenue from the Treasury Department, we took in 14.5% more than we did in May of last year. Now, when it was 9.5% in April, they could talk it away because tax revenue. That's when all the tax revenue comes in. To have May's revenue come in 14.5% higher than last May's is a confirmatory data point that something has fundamentally changed and that the reaction is now beginning to run downhill in a different direction. Then you get the China thing come out. Mm-hmm. Trump's like, nope, we've got to deal with China. We're going to get and look at and look at it. And if you realize that it wasn't much that got changed. Yeah. All over the deal that they had about a month ago, it was China's is going to issue is not going to ban exports of rare earths and neodymium and all the rest of it for the magnets and all the things we need while we spin up our own domestic production. And they're still getting the 20% fentanyl tax. So China's got work to do. If China wants to get that 55% total tariff down, easy. Stop shipping the fucking fentanyl precursors out. Yeah. And it was interesting listening to Kosh Patel the other day on Joe Rogan. And the first thing everybody wanted to focus on was, oh, he lied about Epstein. I'm like, fuck Epstein. Epstein is a distraction. Listen to what he really talked about, which is that look at the way China has evaded the fentanyl precursor thing. They say, well, we banned this precursor. Yeah, but there's 14 other ways to make fentanyl. Why? Because chemistry is complex and because there's multiple pathways to making fentanyl. Oh, by the way. Yeah. And he said, no. So what they were doing is they were shipping some of those other ones out to India, relabeling them. They were coming in other ways. They moved the labs out of Mexico and moving them in through Canada and then having them come down across the border and all the rest of it. So it's like, that was the meat of that interview. That's what was necessary for people to really hear. And the douchebags going around and complaining about fucking Epstein are falling for the psyop, which is that Epstein was a spent asset.
Yes.
Yeah.
His operation was over.
His operation was over. And so it was time to, is now time to
bring him in,
utilize him and you just keep using him as an asset by keeping this thing lingering on. Fuck Epstein.
Look at this.
It's like royalty. It's like royalties from an invest. There's someone in the intelligence community who's just like the Seinfeld of just like the royalty king. They're like, yeah, I did Epstein.
Here's the funny part about the Epstein thing. I was talking with Dexter White about this the other day. He says, I don't doubt at one point that Epstein was, obviously working for the Mossad or the CIA or all the above. But at some point when they were done with him, he started running his own. What if he was just running his own book? What if he was just running his own like rogue operation and then it needed to be taken out? Yeah. No one's ever really thought about that.
That's fair.
I never thought about it until Dexter put it in my head. I'm like, that fits the facts of what happened to him more than anything else. And then take Patel's statement about he was going into Gen Pop and would do anything to not get knifed.
Didn't he, just to play, because I tend to think that he was killed by the Mossad or CIA, but just to play the advocacy that he took himself out. I also I believe he was killed, but I can understand abstractly why he would kill himself. He was living high in the hog. He had the best life ever for a pedophile. He had his own island, his own $57 million penthouse. He had a ranch. Right. And then, he's going out and there probably is some level of like, I think Tim Dillon said, he goes, you do it or we do it. It's over. It's you do it or we do it. And I think he did change his will like days before. I'm pretty sure he did. The book, The Spider by Barry Levine, I've had him on here. I'm pretty sure he, not even his lawyers, he changed his will. I kind of think it was like,
I kind of don't care.
No, I mean,
ultimately,
it's a dead asshole.
Even now, we're biting into the distraction and going.
Right, it's like I don't care. No, so I want to go back to the chemical reaction.
Well, no, hold on. I was going to say along that line of the chemical reaction. What do you think there is about? In less than a week, you have Elon kind of giving full support to Trump's actions in California. Is that just as simple as they can agree and disagree on different things? Do you think there's some
psyop? I thought that was a game.
Well, of course it was. Of course it was.
Loyalty test.
Of course it was a fucking thing. But do you think there is some level of, let's say it's even real, Do you think there is some level of like, hey, shut your fucking mouth. This is like the complex chemical reaction. You need to be back in line. Do you think it's
No, 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 no,
no?
no, 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 no. Elon's playing on a whole different level, right? You don't
Yeah,
get
and
to where
they're
he
both
is without
trolls. As soon
playing.
as I saw that, I was like, well,
No, it's a loyalty test. And when you're getting ready, so
on
right,
Elon
there's
or perpetrated by Elon and
no,
Trump?
no, no, no. It was they played this game
That's right.
and
Yeah,
others backed it, right?
that's
This
what
was
I
a loyalty
think.
test of insiders. And actually, look when it happened. It happened just after the strike on Russia
The drone.
that they didn't know about. So they're trying to draw somebody out,
Hmm.
right? They're doing some loyalty testing to some folks and trying to draw some people out. And then there's always the market testing, when you put stuff out to see how it sticks out there, right? And who gets behind what. Um,
Mhm.
there's also an algorithm change. I noticed at Twitter around the same time about what was getting pushed around and what wasn't. And
Mm.
so there was a whole bunch of stuff going on there, right? So back to the right. There's a lot of things happening. We're going through this massive chemical state change, right? We're going through phases. You've got to check and see that you're not at the end phase yet. You don't have the final product that you're trying to get, but at each step, you got to look and go, okay, there's some heat coming out over here. We've got some energy we need to introduce over here. We need to stir and mix things a little, you know what I mean? We need to add a little bit more. So I suspect what happened with the whole Russia thing, the Russia strike, and then the Trump and Elon thing was one of those, phase state tests. And then what came out of it? Well, we got heat that came out of it. What was that? LA,
I was gonna say, as soon as it happened, everyone's like, now let's wait for the distraction.
right?
A
And
day
then literal
later.
heat. I mean, they're burning shit,
Yeah, yeah, but then
right?
isn't that interesting that it comes out and everyone's like, wait for the big distraction, and it was like a day later, the riots break out. 2 days
Yes.
later, it's like Marines are
Yes.
deployed. It is kind of fascinating how quickly the distraction came, or what followed from the distraction.
What should be concerning to us is that this was a strike on illicit funds and illicit income, and they went straight to riots.
Wait, hold. I just
Yes,
what was
yes, yes.
what was that
That's
thing?
what should be concerning because who's in control of that? It ain't the cartels.
Hold on, what was that? I just remember. What was that thing like right before Trump took office, or like last December? Do you remember that it was the one like super viral on Twitter for like 2 days? The whole aerial photos of some like train yard or something where they're using like trash and rocks and they're writing in Spanish like trafficking
Oh, it's in
federales.
LA. That's in
Wasn't that?
LA. Yeah, yeah,
I missed that.
Yeah,
yeah,
dude, it got really big for like 2 days. It was all this like somebody had been like aligning rocks or tires.
yeah,
They were basically spelling out in like Spanish like child trafficking,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that kind of just went away.
yeah, yeah.
Does that
It's
tie into
well,
this?
this specifically Holman articulated both it was money laundering and human trafficking,
Well,
both.
point.
So again, we cut off their public funding. Now we have to go after their private funding. The problem is, and again, to what I just articulated about how did wasn't the cartels that spun all that up, right? So whose funding was
You don't
that
think it's the
really?
cartels that spun up all the
No,
rioting and I thought
Oh,
no,
no.
no,
no, no, no, no,
no.
no.
It's who actually runs the cartels.
Who runs the cartels?
Oh, the intelligence community.
Whose funding line is that?
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
The home team.
so we're talking about all of this, and I'm just, we're talking about human trafficking, we're talking about
Yeah.
this and everything else, and I'm looking at a thing on my private Slack server of somebody reminding me of of something I read earlier today, and I'm like, it didn't pop into my head until here we are, and there's Maria Zakharova, the spokesperson for the Russian Foreign Ministry, asking the very simple question: why don't the Ukrainians want their dead back? Is it because something will be uncovered? Meaning these guys don't have their organs.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Organ harvesting.
Yeah, no, that makes
Now,
sense.
is that
Okay.
Russian propaganda? Is it not? I throw it out there
It's
because
coming out. It's coming
you're
out
putting
too many
nothing
different
against.
places.
Again,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be true, this particular thing,
Yeah.
but it can be. Remember, the best lies have a nugget of truth to them, and the truth is that unless you're willing to fight like that, against people who are willing to fight like that, you cannot beat them.
Yeah.
You
So
have to.
I created a meme about a year or so ago, and I'll just paraphrase it, but it's got some legs out there. But I created a meme, let it out about a year or so ago, and it's just, when the seals on evil are broken, it doesn't matter who's good guys or bad guys. It's just our murderers versus their murderers, and
Right.
who comes out on top.
Mhm.
Right.
So what we're trying to do right now is we're trying to cut off funding to their murderers.
Right. Yes.
Right? Not their
Yeah.
bag
No. I mean,
man, not their, I mean, they're actual murderers. Yeah.
look. The reality is that in a war, and it's a war. The color revolution is
Yes,
a
it
war.
is. That's exactly
It's
right.
not. It's not a.
Yep.
It's not a. It's
Yep.
not a.
It's
Special military
propaganda.
I
operation.
call it
It,
estrogen-based warfare.
fine. I like that phrase. I will just use the color revolution thing because it's now actually seeded into the zeitgeist.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah, yeah, yeah.
continue to seed the rest of this into the zeitgeist. But the color revolution is a war. You have to treat it as
Yes.
such.
Yes.
And at
It's a
the end of the
coup.
day, there are going to be
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
who are there are going to be mistakes made. There's going to be people who are unfairly
Yep.
hurt, trampled, this, that, and everything else. But the sad part about it is that we'll make reparations to them later on an individual basis if we
Correct.
need to. But
Correct.
this is where we have to be in defend the something mode as
Yes.
men, and that something is civilization itself.
Yep.
And if we're not willing to if we're not willing to fight for our civilization, then I will quote again the narrator from Fight Club. I'm angry at every panda that won't fuck to save its own species. And I'm just not
So-
playing with this game any fucking more.
Women,
I've
women
never
have,
heard that.
women have to give us permission, men, testosterone, give us permission to lead again
Don't ask for
and
permission.
go do what we
bitches.
got to do. Right?
Don't
My
ask.
wife
because-
has, so
Don't ask permission. That's
Unfortunately, well,
yeah,
that's
don't
where
ask
we're
permission.
getting,
Just
That's
that's
faulty
where we're
logic.
getting. That's where we're getting, right? But 80% of the assets, 80 to 90%, depending of the assets, are actually owned or controlled by women. That's just statistically accurate. So there is a certain amount of some men, at least, some men in positions of power, some families that could lose everything, and it's a substantive amount. Those women have to give those men permission to go to war. And then the rest of us get, involved in our own ways. Right?
I think it's.
Mhm.
I was going to say, I think it's obvious that Melania has given Donald
That's exactly the case.
the
That's
permission
exactly
to go
the
to war.
case. That's exactly the case. And she's not the only one.
No.
Right? But when we look at the societies that have beaten these color revolutions, and you look down beneath and some of the families, et cetera, that's exactly what happens. Some of the matriarchs say, no more. Men, go do what you got to do. Go kill kids, go kill people, go do whatever you got to do, but stop this.
Yes.
Right? So there is a certain amount of, and that's evolution in nature, also a check and balance on, on males, right? Otherwise, we would just have violence everywhere.
yeah.
Right?
So one thing in the last 20 minutes or so, one thing I always like with the podcast is it's why I always say the year as well when I say the date. I always like to look back because it's entirely different if you can look at something and talk about what you believe is coming. And if you look at the timestamp and it's 2021, it's like, oh, that's kind of accurate. And it's not for some ego thing to pat yourself on the back, but it's rather to look back and go, okay, my analysis and extrapolation was pretty accurate. I can trust that, or I can move forward on that. Or sometimes I look back and go, I was so fucking wrong. Don't do that again. So it's easy to look at in hindsight. The first thing, right, they go after USAID. Okay, so there's the government side there's the corruption and the taking the money out of your pocket. The next is it's okay, so they're going after trafficking, money laundering, that's the illicit. But even now, we're saying that after it's happened. It's been a week, but it's still after it happened. So just from my own OCD, what do we expect or predict to happen with reasonable, broad brush here? I don't know, the coming months or till the end of this calendar year. It's easy to say in hindsight, it was USAID and then the illicit. But just for sake of trusting our own gut, what is coming and say that the remaining 6 months of the year?
So let me put something out there, and Tom, I'd really like your kind of thought on this. So you go after public funding, USAID and other things, other programs in the State
AD, blah, blah,
Department, et
blah.
cetera, right? So it wasn't just USAID funding. There's a whole bunch of other lines of, okay, 12 series, shall we say. You now go after the illicit, which is the whole point about going after the cartels, et cetera, is to go after the illicit funding. The next thing you have to do is you have to go after the elite families and institutions, organizations that have the war chest, right? All this cheap money that's, all this funds, and families got 50 billion and they're willing to spend 25 of it on this war. So I suspect, and I could be completely wrong on this, but I suspect that the incompetence of the Cash Patels and Bonginos and the Bondies is not real, because what you have to go after next is the elite families that are backing and funding this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And who have undue influence over local governments. Do you think Mayor Bass in LA has any fucking power to do anything? You think she's the one doing this?
No,
She'd be
not at all.
offed,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So the next step, and this is leading, and this has got to kind of, again, the chemical reactions happening, things are forming up, particulates falling, you know what I mean?
Right.
So you got to time this right. And what's happening next year is we got these midterm elections, and it's about power at every level, right? It's not about the federal level at this point. They've lost that, and they probably lost it for a good long time. Now it's about counties, cities, and states, and winning that. Well, who's the ones that control that? It's these wealthy families, these elite families, and you got to go after them. And you got to do it right, and you got to do it careful, and you can't do it too soon, right? And you can't do it if you've got all the cartel money and you're not going after the cartels, because then they got hitmen and
Right.
all this kind of stuff, and then they've got funding, and so you had to take out the first two legs of the stool. Now you got to go after the third, and I suspect at some point we're going to start seeing that.
I
And
agree.
it'll probably come from, okay, so they went after the illicit funding in LA. Who's involved in that? Who's connected to that? Who's making money off of that?
Right. Watching people like Data Republican and others trace the money on who's behind No Kings versus who's behind what's happening in LA. Those are two different groups. One is Soros based, which is coming on Saturday. And the other is this guy, I can't remember his name, Singh, whatever his fucking name is. I can't remember his name. What's important is you realize that we're now seeing new names come up.
Yep.
Okay. Remember that, when you look at a Soros, you're seeing a lieutenant.
Yes.
Okay. So a lot of these guys, you start with the low level, street level thugs, you move up to the regional distributors until eventually you get to the Don himself. And you might not even get all of them at every point. The thing you force them to do in order to really beat an opponent that has a vast sum of money is eventually you have to get them to put their money on the table.
Correct. Principle.
What we did first, right? What we've done, what we were doing slowly, what the Fed has been doing up into 2022 through the 2021 through 2025 was draining
free money,
the
unearned liquidity. I call it unearned liquidity.
Unearned. It's the rent. It's the rent, right?
Yes.
And I mean, in the economic term of the word, it's the rent where they can get. So you dismantle their roadblocks, you dismantle their ability to pull a vig off of every fucking transaction we make. You reverse the money. Now you've done what is Trump doing? He's reversing the flow of dollars. He's now imposing on them a market access charge to utilize the dollar and to get access to our markets. That's what tariffs are. Now, if you want to sell your shit into our country, we're going to tax you for it, and we're going to take that tax and we're going to use it to pay down the fucking deficit. That's what we're doing there, right? While we mobilize it simultaneously, while we mobilize domestic assets in order to build a sovereign wealth fund to pay for the ongoing costs of the existing state and mechanism, meaning Social Security and Medicare. And you stick that in the sovereign wealth fund, and you let the
You do it Norway's
returns
done.
on that pay for
Yeah.
our obligations to
Yeah.
the next two generations. If they want to continue fighting this war, they have to put their money on the table. And this is why why I argue that the Fed should not cut interest rates yet, because the Fed is making them pay through the nose for dollars right now.
Can't. Yeah.
Can't. You have to hold it. You have to hold. You have to hold your water.
Yeah.
Or if you do that, now that we're past the official end of LIBOR, and you'll note that the European Union is screaming that the Fed may not bail out certain. They'll selectively bail out certain European banks if there's any liquidity troubles, or they won't come to our help, to our side under these circumstances, this or this. Now they're trying to spin that as this is why we have to spin up a whole new monetary system for ourselves, and why we have to go to the digital euro and all. Fine, you go right ahead. What they're going to do next is they're not going to fuck around anymore.
No,
they've run out of time. They've run out of money. They're going to need to seize the $300 billion or the 210, the 230 that they have frozen. They're going to steal the Russian foreign exchange reserves.
Yep.
That's their next escalation. They've already attacked the nuclear triad.
The
next one has to be a financial nuclear weapon. They tried to get us to do it when they had Janet Yellen and Joe Biden in power, and they couldn't get it done. And because there were just enough people on our side saying, you're not fucking doing this. You do that, Yellen, and you'll wind up in a fucking grave.
I think this is why they're going after Ireland so hard.
Okay.
They want Ireland to fall so they can get the trillions in foreign corporation monies, right?
Yeah.
And they get all the intel from
Google
all the banks,
and Meta
all the company filings, and
they want to get Apple's. They want to get Apple's money.
They want all that cash. They want all that money. They want all that business intelligence.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. That's a very good point, Em. I hadn't quite put all that together, but you're absolutely correct. Now that you say it, it's like, well, clearly.
That's what I would do, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I would do.
And they've been
if I were Emperor Palpatine,
using this whole sport of kings, right? That Imran and I were talking about the other day. Everything they've been doing with sanctions packages have had virtually nothing to do with Russia and everything to do with capital flight from their own economies, their own systems. Everything they've been doing around the Russian sovereign assets, the 300 billion or whatever, and who knows if that's really the number. All of that's been PSYOP working and legal working and setting the conditions for seizure. Ireland's, and working out the logic and getting everybody agreed and internally, etc. Excuse me. They just brought Bulgaria into the EU, into the euro currency. So they've just enslaved the Bulgarians for the next 5 generations if Europe survives. But that big pot of so Gibraltar is also an offshore. So Gibraltar, all these spiderweb islands, right? You got to go after them. This is what Starmer's really doing. What Starmer's doing is not about the rock. It's about the companies registered there, and it's about the assets registered in the banks there.
Yep.
Expect Jersey, Guernsey, whatever other ones of the spider's webs nodes that he can give to Europe to capitalize them, recapitalize them. That's their move. The question becomes, why did Trump have Conor McGregor in the White House and then have him meet Pete Hegseth,
right,
and Tulsi Gabbard, Conor McGregor, and then send him back to Ireland? It's like, okay.
That's good.
We know that they want those. They have to have that. They have to take that wealth. If they can take Ireland and take the trillions of dollars there, right? That's unearned liquidity that they can flush their system up with. They get the corporations, the corporate, all of it, right? Okay. How would I fight them? Not being able to say it openly or directly. I would let them know that you can go ahead and try, but we'll just stir the Irish up to do Irish shit.
Yep.
Right. Yep. And oh, by the way, we still have the pubs where we were doing arms deals for the IRA, and we still got all those channels to pump all those weapons and money and et cetera. And oh, by the way, a lot of those boys are still around. And they'd like the workout routine because the gym's getting boring.
So to
I love the way this dude thinks. I really do. The more I think about it, it's just like it's just fucking hilarious.
but
Yeah, absolutely. And Ireland was set up to be
Correct.
this kind of offshore
Yes.
antipode.
Correct.
This thing that
all
they
the
didn't
big
actually
tech has shit there.
What's that?
right.
Meta,
But
Google, Apple, they all have
Everybody.
headquarters.
well,
Everybody's there.
because what they did was they created a place to sink all the money.
Yeah.
It was rational. This is my argument.
Yeah.
My argument I've been making for a long time. Well, it's just a free market response because Ireland is a free trade zone and it's low tax rates. Like, yeah, the free market is allowed to operate in such a way that it funnels money where they want it to go.
Where it
It's
pools.
operating as a
It
particle in a
pools.
box, and they've defined where the fucking walls of the box.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to wrap up that point would be USAID first, okay. Second would be the illicit, and you're saying the third would be the families obviously because they're really
And
intelligent.
places like Ireland.
They would
and
rather
these pools. Yeah.
you'd rather use government funding, and then you'd rather use illicit. You don't want to, but if you had to, you would dip into your own bank account, your own whatever.
Remember, the way the Europeans negotiate anything is they steal your shit and then they offer it back to you with strings.
It's a bitch and a divorce. That's how they think. That's what I'm saying. Estrogen-based warfare. It's what we're dealing with, and this is how they think. It's how they operate. It's like, okay, well, some men
owe me. You couldn't have built this without me. You didn't build that. You didn't do this. And they're applying, and it makes perfect sense. And understand, like, they're using in the 21st century. My wife and I were literally talking about this the other day, and she was the one bringing this up, which is hilarious. And she says they're applying 1950s reality. Where the divorce rules were written when the women didn't have access to credit. They didn't have access to any of this stuff. So the divorce rules were written in the 1950s, and that was correct because she gave up everything. She gave up her fertility. She gave up all of her assets. You barred her from being able to build wealth. And then you use that, and then you kept those laws on the books and then used them into the 2020s.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any goddamn sense.
I'm not a fan of Islam or the Muslims, but they might have this one for divorce, right? Where she just has to have one room, a toilet, and a stove.
I don't disagree with them on everything. The more that goes,
I mean,
again,
I'll take the fifth on that one. I'll take it.
I like as Tim Dillon said. He goes, I was talking to a Saudi Arabian family once, and I went, you beautiful architecture, you got all the money. It just looks bad when you kill all these women. And he goes, and the guy looks at me, he goes, we only kill the loud ones. And he goes, we had a misunderstanding the whole time.
All this time.
Let's put GWAP behind us. I think we understand each other. Just the loud ones.
I want to touch on Saudi Arabia, if I might, in the Middle East, and what I think's really going on there, which has nothing to do with Iran. It's the Mackinder principle, but instead of Russia, it's for Saudi Arabia. Ring it with chaos, ring it with conflict, ring it with failed violent states so that they can't use, a sizable portion, so they're constantly in a state of siege. They're constantly in a state of conflict. They can't have a golden age. They can't have a golden era. They can't really evolve beyond oil and gas as the base of their economy because you can secure that, but that's taking all of your energy and effort. And you make sure that Islam doesn't have a golden age in the heart, in the homeland of Islam, which is Mecca and Medina in Saudi Arabia. And you force them to buy your weapons and ammunition with a large portion of the monies that you are paying for their oil. So I suspect that's why Israel was allowed and stood up there and drives and foments. That's why we have all these, headquarters in Qatar, tiny little thumbnail Qatar, and why there's all this conflict and why we took down Iraq and why we.
And now this is why Trump is trying so hard to cut a sustainable deal with the Iranians to end all that, and at the same time repudiate the Likud portion of the neoconservative, whatever you want to call it, the globalist aspects of the Israeli state.
We're trying to
And
end Mackinder theory.
right, he's trying
Yeah.
in the region. And
Yeah.
the Iranians are not stupid. They know that they have,
Yes.
and the Iranians are not dumb. They know that they have some cards to play. And Trump's maximalist position that they can't enrich any uranium is a non-starter, and he knows it. It's all that's all for public consumption.
It's all theater. Yeah.
Because he hasn't gotten the budget reconciliation bill passed.
Yeah.
Once that's done, he knows that Congress knows that they have no leverage over him after that passes. So at that point, he can cut whatever deal he needs to. It's obvious that he's gotten the guarantees from Putin that they're only going to do civilian enrichment for power and for medical nuclear radionuclides and radionuclides and all the rest of it. They know all that. And why do you think Rosatom is building 7 fucking nuclear power plants in Iran? So clearly at some point the deal is, I think the deal is already done. And Iran coming out this week, then turning around and going, oh, by the way, you have infiltrated everything about our nuclear program. Well, we know all where your secrets are, and we know where all your bodies are buried as well. And oh, by the way, it would be a real fucking shame if somebody published them all. So, hey, why don't we all put our cards on the table? You want us to put everything on the table? You want us to open up everything we're doing? Great. Israel gets to do the same thing, or it's not an equitable arrangement.
So it's not like the Persians don't know us well, going back thousands of years, right? It's not like they don't know how we fight and how we play and,
the game. Right.
The game, right? And it isn't like they haven't been in it at the highest level for thousands of years.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So
I mean, that's also not a hard one to decode, folks.
Yeah.
It's not tough. It'll happen when it needs to happen. But right now we are in maximum opposition mode. They are in the screaming mode. They are in the getting just close to that moment, to use EM's metaphor, where they're screaming at the husband in the bar and they're getting ready to punch him, but they know damn well that if they lose their shit, he's going to knock them out, and everybody's going to be like, oh, thank fucking God. Another round over here at this table. Thank you. Moving on. And that is the response that they are definitely scared of.
So I suspect, back to the financing thing, right? The funding thing. I suspect that back to also defunding the enemy is we're going to have to do some very sophisticated things, maybe some things we don't like, and we're going to have to allow these companies and entities to repatriate a lot of their capital before it gets stolen.
Yep. Yeah. No, that's coming.
Right.
And I'll tell you exactly how they can do that. It's not hard. It's the whole stable coin bill. The money can come back in at par. You buy treasuries. You all that money is invested in treasuries. You bring that money back home at par through the stable coin. This is actually for the foreigners that have all of these. Let's put our treasuries to work domestically we'll still pay your interest and everything else. And this is how this is going to work. We're going to pay, but you're going to put those treasuries and pledge them against the stable coin, which you can use to invest here. And you're going to have to pay that. And that's how you're going to get a dollar for a dollar. Everybody else who doesn't play the game gets dollars for 95 cents. Yeah. Well, gets dollars for $1.05.
Yeah.
They pay $1, they get 95 in return. Yeah. It's, as my friend Vince Lanchi likes to put it, it's an ATM fee, folks.
Yeah. So in order to bring that capital back, though, we've got to get rid of we got to get through this fight because
and we have to get
they're also going to accelerate this conflict. Why they're doing the color revolution, so they make us an unfavorable place for capital.
Yes, no, that's clearly obvious,
right?
I've been watching this for 4 years, going,
yeah.
Okay, now what? And it's just the chaos. This is why today's really interesting that we're doing this, because today, the CPI, the deal, the this, the that, all of these things just hit today, and all of a sudden, the DAX was down 1%, and the Dow was trying to break higher and being pushed back into the box. Like, you're watching the capital try to flow into the U.S. and it's being stopped. Now, I got news for you. Every time that they do that, when it's obvious that the flood wants to occur, that's when they're putting their money on the table to stop it.
Yep. Yep.
When they try to blow up the end carry trade, or they do the tariff tantrum, and they attacked the SOFR strip a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. This was all, that was their money they were putting on the table, folks. They weren't using they're not using our tax dollars to fuck us anymore.
No.
So it's a process. It's time. It's going to take time to bleed them out, just like it's taken the Russians 3.5 years to bleed out the fucking Ukrainians. How you win a war against an opponent who has more money and more resources is you attrit them, but you attrit them in such a way as they still think they have the ability to. Yeah. And so no, the Russian one of the Russian generals or diplomats said, somebody asked him. Oh, they asked Larry Johnson. Larry Johnson was just over in Moscow, and he asked him, it's like, well, why didn't you guys blow up all the bridges crossing the Dnieper River and just end this thing? He's like, because that would have left the Ukrainian army on the west side of the Dnieper intact. Our goal was to destroy it, so we left the bridges open and let them fight it out, so we could kill them all.
You never meet an enemy in a battlefield of their choosing or time. And that's what's happening. We're just, and again, back to the chemical reaction, right? I'm trying to induce the other portions of the chemical reaction to come to me, to come to my reaction, to come to what I need it to form into, right? Where I can handle the exothermic and other issues. I
can control the rate at which this thing goes and what the daughter
titration, all of it. Yep. Yeah.
So
this is it is that in a nutshell. It's always been about, you have to bleed them, you have to make them think they can still win. And the problem with the mind of the people that we're fighting is that they still think it's the 19th fucking century and that they're in charge. They're not in charge. The Chinese are hip to their fucking game. The Russians are hip to their game. The Americans are hip to their game. And now, and all the satellite countries, the Saudis, the Italians, they're all rising up and going, you know what? That's nice. We're done.
Estrogen thinks it's in control of reality. It's not. Reality's in control of reality. And we're not playing their game anymore.
The gaslighting is over, folks.
It's over. It's over. Now it's a matter of, we're going to impoverish you because that's the only thing you listen to.
Yep.
So the two predictions would be USAID to illicit. The next would be they're going to go after the private families, and you're going to also, or Ireland, and then you're also going to allow a way to repatriate money of these giant corporations.
Yes.
That's the quote unquote Trump side of the equation. On the other side of the equation is going to be, they're going to steal Russia's foreign exchange assets in order to move up the escalatory ladder, at which point the Russians will go, we'll get that money back later.
I also suspect that some of these families, because they have sizable fortunes that they've illicitly gained, will be allowed to keep their wealth. It'll be here in the United States, though, under U.S. control, and they will be out of the game. And if they move at all, because this is what, there are still Nazis and Stasi that are on the pension payrolls of Germany, because Germany realized it was easier to just, we'll pay your pensions,
pay you to fuck off,
pay your income, but you're out of the game. And if you ever get in it, you lose all that. You lose everything. So I suspect those conversations are happening with different families. It's like, okay, what was the MBS thing? $1 trillion. What was Japan, right? There's these entities committing large amounts of money into the United States. Okay, but you're not going to do that. You're not going to back that organization. You're not going to back that group. You're not going to get involved in this. If you do, you will forfeit your wealth. You can keep it. You can live comfortable. We're not going to kill you yet. Well,
or we'll
kill you.
The ultimate arrangement is going to be, the wealth is in trust that you can't access.
Correct.
You get this off of it. It sits there, and by the way, you're going to pay us back a part of it.
You're going to put it in these asset classes that we're going to be able to use as collateral for growth in some area.
For recapitalizing the country. Yes.
Correct. And Tommy, what you said, and we won't kill you.
Yeah,
because the alternative is,
you don't want to point it at. What's the fucking art of? I think one of them is give your enemy a golden bridge to retreat across. If your goal is to win, then remove emotion and from outright revenge and go. If the goal is to win with minimal damage, give your enemy a gold bridge to retreat across. Be ready to J-dam it, sure, but give them a bridge.
So I want to go. I think this is a great place to stop too, guys. And
Sure.
sorry, I got to
I
jump
agree.
off, but um, I think we end it with a Sicilian concept and idea,
Which is
which I love, right? Having maybe gone to school with some of these guys in private school, right? Sicilian way, as taught to me, was that even your staunchest enemy, you have to give them an escape route. You have to give them the opportunity to escape. Now, it doesn't have to be easy. It can be really costly. It might be hard to find, might be hard to figure out. It might be really nuanced.
Mhm.
But even your staunchest enemy has to be given a chance to honorably retreat.
Mhm.
And why?
If not for any reason other than like honor or something, is like, do you really want a cornered animal?
You don't.
Do you really
Well,
want a
you don't.
Shughart and Gordon
The
like
big
in
one.
moment?
Well, the big one in that respect is it's really simple. Like you give them a way to retreat, and you're not creating more. You're not creating a radicalized next generation.
Yeah,
There's one other piece. You also never know when you might not be needing to be given a way out because you got your
sure.
ass into
Yeah,
something
sure.
you can't
And
fucking
there
handle,
is something to be said
right?
for it, even at
The
the highest.
the game never ends. It's eternal.
Correct. That's exactly right. It's an infinite game, not a
Nothing
finite
in.
game. And this is something the Sicilians understood, right? Very, very well.
There's a huge part of it, even at the highest levels of saving face, man. All like you and I talk about this is about all the time. You're like, hey man, you gotta go, but I'll let you like walk.
Yeah,
Everyone
yeah,
has an
yeah,
ego. I have an ego.
yeah,
Everyone has an
yeah,
ego. Doesn't
yeah,
matter who the fuck it is. There's something to be said about saving face. It
yeah.
is.
Well,
That is
I think the thing that we've lost that's the biggest problem because we went to estrogen-based thinking, right? And estrogen-based logic is we've lost the sense of respect. But respect comes from a place of having been punched in the mouth because you said or did something disrespectful
yeah.
or you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
we took that off the playground. We learned that shit when we were little kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
Little kids don't learn that shit anymore.
No.
Yes. Yeah, so yeah,
So
in conclusion, Nuke London. Yeah, I think that's
Fuck it.
you know,
No, I want Mayfair. I want Mayfair on the pennies. I want it cheap. I got
we're,
family there.
we're all gonna say I'm sorry, yeah. We're all
And I
gonna
want Savile Row.
prices. 200 megatons, London. Um,
it,
Cobalt
it
salted.
speaks it speaks to what I've been trying to tell a lot of people for a long time. You're going to have to get comfortable with the idea that you're not going to get revenge on everybody who's ever wronged you.
Correct.
You are going to
Correct.
have to accept the fact that some things are going to have to be let go. By the way, let fucking Epstein go. Let's get the
Yes.
bigger fucking
Operation
prize.
Paperclip, man. I think it was actually an American OSS guy who said, "Stop beating a dead Nazi horse." It was like 3 months after Hitler committed suicide because he was like, "We need these fucking rocket engineers. It's over. They lost. Shut the
Yeah.
fuck up. We're bringing them over. There's another war coming. It's the Soviet Union."
So every time Epstein comes up now, we need to do that little let it go from Frozen.
Yeah.
That just needs to be the reaction from now on.
Well, now you understand that there's going to be a contingent of people that watch this show who now think that we got the call from the Jews. So that's
No,
Oh,
we really didn't. It's just, dude. It's just let
you know
Epstein
how
fucking
fucking grateful I would be to get a call from the Jews to just know that someone's watching my show.
go.
I'd be like, "Thank you, baby. Oh, thank you, man. No, that means the world to me, dude."
the number, the
I
number.
I'd hang
actually
up. I'd call my parents. I'd be like, "I've made it."
I actually talked to a Jew an hour before we got on this call, but it had nothing to do with this.
Any of this stuff. It's like for years, people say you're just nothing but a fucking Russian asset. I'm like, really? Well,
But
come
that
to my
means
house. Like my wife's response was always the same. Tell Mr. Putin he doesn't pay nearly enough because I need new fucking floors.
Dude, I would to be an asset would mean I've made it. I mean, it's
I,
flattering that people assume I get the call. That means someone thinks I'm capable. Um,
I would probably have a hot Russian or Jewish wife if I got the call.
yeah,
That would probably be the
so
tell.
you can buy me off. Um, But let's wrap this shit up for everybody listening. Well, this will be up tomorrow, but for everybody listening, yeah, go to the description, go follow your YouTubes, your Patreons, your Substacks, your whatever the fuck, Twitters, all that good shit. All the links are in there.
The rants.
It's all in there. It's all in there. And
it's all on Twitter at this point, guys.
Yeah,
You guys,
I'll be back on eventually. I'm taking. I like the mental reprieve from not being in the shit. But man, it really I have it kind of as a point. Even just being off Twitter for 2 weeks, I've found just how out of the loop I am on this podcast. It's not good. I had no idea about any of the shit that you guys were saying. So that's also
that's actually good. That's actually good.
well, I like it because it's peaceful, but I'm also like I do need to understand what's going on so I can scream on the podcast.
Well, one of the things I found, I took a few days off when I went up to Calgary, and I took a few days off, and it was actually really good because at a certain point, you're in it often enough. The last point, then we'll let Tommy go. It doesn't hurt to get recharged and get away from this. It does.
Oh.
You're not missing nearly as much as you think.
Okay.
You got to let the chemical reaction rest sometimes before you add in the next catalyst.
I'm going to stay off for a while. It's
as long as your bank account can handle it.
It is. I mean, I find more and more during the podcast, I just looking at it like trees, and I'm like, that's just a beautiful tree. And like normally it would be like the fucking Mexicans need to get killed by the Marines. Like
you think about hanging Mexicans from that tree.
Dude, I'm like, goddamn fucking. And versus now, I'm like, man, the sun really hits the water. So I'm going to keep doing this for a while.
Awesome.
All right, wrap this shit up, gentlemen. Thank you for your time. I'll send you the links when it's up. Thank you so much for your time, guys. Thank you for watching.